And then I guess from that radio, obviously things went on and developed, and then I guess you got the knock from Netflix, or did you go to them and you were there like, I'd love to do this, or how did that start? Because I think for me, and I know a lot of people in our office as well, they've all at least seen a couple episodes. You know, you're scrolling through Netflix, you're like, what should we watch? And then you can't help but click and watch it because it's fascinating. So how did that start? Did you come up with that idea? Did they come to you? How does that?
Well, I mean, in the years that I worked at the BBC, so I went from the Today programme to the 6 o'clock news as a special investigator. And then there was the original launch of BBC Three, and I was their sort of lead investigative journalist. You know, did a lot of undercover stuff. And then I went on to work for Panorama, you know, this prestigious primetime television programme. And then after 8 years at Panorama of doing that kind of dogged, seasoned journalist stuff, I mean, I really did pound the pavements, knock doors, and do some really deep down investigation. It was a transfer of my skills, you know, being in a prison cell, meticulously researching my own miscarriage of justice, gave me the skills to research meticulously. So I used those skills in the years I worked at the BBC. And then I was at Panorama, and then in 2017, 2018, there was a big shake-up at the BBC. You had the Savile case, you had some high-profile, embarrassing cases for the BBC, and so they were shaking up the kind of journalism that I did, and I no longer wanted to be there. So it was literally me leaving the BBC, and as I kind of walked out the door, scratching my head, thinking, what am I going to do next? Netflix came knocking. They had already started Inside the World's Toughest Prisons on Channel 5, and another guy presented that. Netflix bought the series from Channel 5, but they didn't want that presenter. They wanted a new presenter, and it just so happened that I'd left the BBC. They were aware of who I was, and so they came knocking and asked me if I would present this show and would be the host of this show. Initially, I wasn't going to do it because I didn't want to do a show that just sensationalized prison and just went in there and looked for violence and drugs and the typical stuff that you ask, is it really like this or not? So I kind of negotiated with them that they've got to let me do it my way. They've got to let me go in there without judgment and just discover what it's like. And I managed to get that over the line, and I've been doing it for years now.
Nice. So you do get a bit of creative control over the series yourself?
I wouldn't do it otherwise. I mean, I went from the moment for anyone who's watched that series, you know, from the moment I get in the back of a police van, which is where it all starts, you know, they kind of almost arrest me off camera, put me in the back of a police van or whatever means they've got to get me to prison. I've been in the back of trucks, I've been in police cars, I've been in, you know, prison vans. From that moment on, I take on the persona as a prisoner, and everybody knows. So I don't meet anybody beforehand. My team do, just ahead of me getting to the prison, just to lay the land and make sure that we can get through things. But from the moment I get on the back of the police van and I get off that van, I'm treated like a prisoner, you know, and that's the rule. Treat me like a prisoner, treat me, you know, within reason, you know, don't beat the fuck out of me the moment I walk off the van. Or something, you know, so there's got to be some kind of control. But yeah, no, it really is as you see it.
And when you go in there, are you spending the night at these places? Like how you mentioned, you know, you're living it like a prisoner would there. How far does that go?
There are some places where, because for insurance reasons and for security reasons, they can't. So here's an example. I was in Colombia. Don't know if anyone's seen a Colombia episode. If you haven't, you should. I'm in Colombia, and the first guy that I meet whose cell I'm going in, so I carried my stuff into the cell, and immediately he sort of says I have to pay him $200 to stay in the cell, and I'm like, I ain't got $200, and he's a drug.
Sorry, is this on camera as well?
This is on camera. Yeah. So he threatens me for $200, and his cellmate is a Sicario, which is a Colombian hitman who's killed lots of people. That's his job, to kill people for the Colombian cartel. And these two guys confront me and tell me that I've got to pay them money or I'm not going to survive in the cell. So that night, during the day when I'm out there, I'm terrified. I'm scared because I know that night I've got to get banged up with these guys. And I'm scared, genuinely scared. And I don't pretend that I'm scared on camera. If I'm scared, it's because I'm scared. You know, I've done it for real, so I don't show any fear unless I'm genuinely scared. And I was scared, but this was all internal. It was me kind of like, that night we go behind the door and they shut the door. And so it's just the three of us, and I've got my camera. And then they start rolling spliffs, you know, putting cocaine in it and weed, and they're personality changes. You can see their personality changes. Now, the conditions is this. If I'm going to be in the cell overnight, they've got to provide two things. One is a prison officer has to be outside the cell door to open the door to let me out if my life becomes threatened, if my life's in danger. And secondly, they have to agree to have keys inside the prison so that they can open the door, because in most prisons at night, the keys leave the prison in case there's a mass escape. So they can't have keys inside the prison.
I didn't know that.
So on this occasion, the Colombians agreed to it. And I'm banged up with these guys, and and they start smoking this weed and that, and then they start to become very menacing. And they'd already threatened me earlier in the day. So in those scenarios, I will not stay. They will open the door and they will take me out in that environment. A similar thing happened in Lesotho, where these guys threatened to rape me. They said I had to be a wife or take a wife in this episode. And I was genuinely scared, because there are some people you can't read, right? I mean, I've been in prison with every type of guy you can imagine: the good guy, the bad guy, the fat guy, the skinny guy, the vulnerable guy, the dangerous guy, the menacing guy, you name it. I've come face to face with those individuals and have a good reading of those characters. But in this Lesotho episode, when these guys kind of surrounded me and started telling me that I had to either fuck one of the guys in the cell or be fucked by one of these guys, it was really, really intimidating. And I'm trying to put on a brave face, and I lay down now, ready to bed down for the night. And then they kind of like slowly come towards me and their faces change. It was really scary. And I genuinely got up to run out of the door. I was that scared. But the door's fucking closed. I can't get out. I can't get out of the cell. And then they started laughing, but my heart was pounding. I was terrified. And moments like that is when you want to make sure they've got keys outside that door to let me out when I'm staying in there. You know?
And how would you signal that to the producers or the guard? Like, are they watching closely to make sure, or is it you that has to let them know?
They become complacent. In fact, in that Lesotho episode, the guard we don't have any security, so we don't have any prison officers. We have one guy chaperoning us who has keys, so he can let us in and out of gates and doors and stuff like that, because you can't open them yourself. So the one guy in this Lesotho cell was asleep in the corner. You know, he was literally, as we were shooting. Obviously, I have no security. So the team that goes in is me and two camera people.
Yep.
And then I will have, if possible, a sound man who speaks the lingo of the country that I'm in, if it's a foreign language, and he doubles up as a translator.
Okay.
So it's just the three of us. So if anything kicks off now, you've got to remember, when these guys are looking through the lens, they've got one eye closed and they're looking through the lens, so they can't see anything that's going on around.
They're just trying to get that good shot.
They're just trying to get that good shot. So at the moment I'm running to the door, they don't know what the fuck's going on. If I've gone and they're like, where's he gone? Looking for me like that. And then they find me. And their life is in danger just as much as mine.
Of course,
in Paraguay, we got attacked where I was interviewing one guy. He's dead now, he killed himself. But I was with this guy. We were playing pool together. All of a sudden, snooker balls are being thrown at us. One snooker ball, the guy was holding the camera, and the snooker ball hit the camera. If it hit his head, it would have blasted his head open, you know. So we have been in scenarios where it's extremely dangerous, and it turns at the flick of a finger twitch or whatever. It can be very menacing and scary.
Wow. And what are the other prisoners told when you come in with a team, stuff like that? Are they made aware of?
They're not. They're told that we're making a documentary.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't understand whether I'm a real prisoner coming in who's being filmed, or I am part of the documentary team. So it depends on their level of understanding of what's been explained. They are explained from the get-go by the prison staff that a TV crew are coming in. Some of them don't even know what Netflix is. They've been in prison so long, Netflix didn't exist when they were in.
Of course, you don't even think about it like that.
Don't even know about it. It can be... So they don't know. There are times where they don't know that I've been to prison.
Yeah.
During our conversation, it kind of the penny drops. So they think this guy is asking questions. That means he knows a little bit too much about prison. You know, the little things that you guys wouldn't know because you've not sat in a prison cell on your own for hours and hours and hours and overcome the threats of prison. So it gives me an edge, if you like, which helps me, I wouldn't say manipulate, but build the trust of the prisoners when I'm there.
Wow. And I imagine this is highly unlikely, but I always wonder when I'm watching, sometimes, is there ever going to be a time where you go into this prison and somebody is just going to be like, that's Rafael Ro?
That's happened.
It has happened.
Quite recently, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no.
Getting recognised in prison. That's very...
So I suppose because the series has been going on for quite a few years now, the new prisoners who are familiar with it and the prison staff, it's almost like a welcome committee in some places, which has its advantages and disadvantages. And the advantages are it's a lot easier for me to build their trust because they've seen episodes that I've done previously. They know I'm not there just to knock them or to judge them in any way. But equally, it becomes, for me, more dangerous, and especially for my crew, because, you just don't know if someone wants their 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
It might be that they know what Netflix is about. They're going to be in prison for 30 years. They've got nothing to lose, and it puts our lives in a little bit more danger. So where I've always had eyes at the back of my head, I've got them on the side and all over me now, trying to steer... because I don't go in with the same team. Lots of the people that I go in and film this stuff with have never been inside a prison before, yet they're going inside some of these most vulnerable, dangerous places.
So it's not the same cameraman at all times? No.